Okay. And once again, it is great to have all of you here today at our live Zoom A Course in Miracles study group, Chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego Body Illusion. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll start reading. Okay. All things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. The ego exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into awareness. And this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. The ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. The ego has every reason to do this, according to the thought system which gave rise to it and which it serves. Sane judgment would inevitably judge against the ego and must be obliterated by the ego in the interest of its self-preservation. A major source of the ego's off-balanced state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thoughts of God. Thoughts of God are unacceptable to the ego because they clearly point to the non-existence of the ego itself. The ego therefore either distorts them or refuses to accept them. It cannot, however, make them cease to be. It therefore tries to conceal not only unacceptable body impulses, but also the thoughts of God, because both are threatening to it. Being concerned primarily with its own preservation in the face of threat, the ego perceives them as the same. By perceiving them as the same, the ego attempts to save itself from being swept away, as it would surely be in the presence of knowledge. Any thought system that confuses God and the body must be insane. Yet this confusion is essential to the ego, which judges only in terms of threat or non-threat to itself. In one sense, the ego's fear of God is at least logical, since the idea of him does dispel the ego. But fear of the body, with which the ego identifies so closely, makes no sense at all. The body is the ego's home by its own election. It is the only identification with which the ego feels safe. Since the body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of God, this is the belief that the ego sponsors eagerly, yet the ego hates the body because it cannot accept it as good enough to be its home. Here is where the mind becomes actually dazed. Being told by the ego that it is really part of the body, and that the body is its protector, the mind is also told that the body cannot protect it. Therefore, the mind asks, where can I go for protection? To which the ego replies, turn to me. The mind, and not without cause, reminds the ego that it has itself insisted that it is identified with the body. So there's no point in turning to it for protection. The ego has no real answer to this because there is none, but it does have a typical solution. It obliterates the question from the mind's awareness. Once out of awareness, the question can and does produce uneasiness, but it cannot be answered because it cannot be asked. This is the question that must be asked. Where can I go for protection? Seek and ye shall find. Does not mean that you should seek blindly and desperately for something you would not recognize. Meaningful seeking is consciously undertaken, consciously organized, and consciously directed. The goal must be formulated clearly and kept in mind. Learning and wanting to learn are inseparable. You learn best when you believe that what you are trying to learn is of value to you. However, not everything you may want to learn has lasting value. Indeed, many of the things you want to learn may be chosen because their value will not last. The ego thinks it is an advantage not to commit itself to anything that is eternal, because the eternal must come from God. Eternalness is the one function the ego has tried to develop, but has systematically failed to achieve. The ego compromises with the issue of the eternal, just as it does with all issues touching on the real question in any way. By becoming involved with tangential issues, it hopes to hide the real question and keep it out of mind. The ego's characteristic busyness with non-essentials is for precisely that purpose. Preoccupations with problems set up to be incapable of solution are for impeding learning progress. In all these diversionary tactics, however, the one question that is never asked by those who pursue them is, what for? This is the question that you must learn to ask in connection with everything. What is the purpose? Whatever it is, it will direct your efforts automatically. When you make a decision of purpose, then you have made a decision about your future effort, a decision that will remain in effect unless you change your mind. All right. Any comments about what we just read?
Welcome, Ernesto. Yeah, we really like that last bit. We think we understood that in a way that we maybe haven't before. This idea that, yeah, whatever we're doing, we're not sure if this is exactly what it meant, but the idea that whatever we're doing, we should ask, what are we doing this for? And figure out what our motivations are. That seems like a really fascinating thing to do, because we think, yeah, so much of the things that we think we need to do, it's like we don't question, and we just automatically, yeah, we need to do this, we need to do this. If we know what we're doing it for, then as it says, it will direct your efforts automatically. If we know what the purpose is, then we will be much more efficient in our actions, and probably do less. Yeah, so yeah, that bit is good for us. Thank you.
Yeah, and in our questioning too, right? I find that a lot with A Course in Miracles. All of these things that seem curious and interesting and inexplicable, we question, right? Well, what about this? What about this? And it's really just a device by the ego to keep us from focusing on what's really important. Like, what is this for? Why do we need to know this? And it just takes the ego off on this chase and away from the truth.
For sure. Yeah, we just sort of answered our own question as well. Like for Adyashanti, for example, it's us who is perceiving him as sick. Yeah, we are perceiving a person as being sick. That's totally our perception. It's not like, yeah, we can't quite explain it, but it's not like he is a separate entity who, if he were enlightened, then he wouldn't be sick. That's just our story. Yeah, we can't quite explain what we mean, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's sort of, we understood it. We think we understand it anyway.
Great,
yeah.
Great. It was interesting to me that some of what was being read did speak to, what you had asked in sort of a roundabout way, and you got it. It spoke to you. That's great.
I think that's always fascinating too, when we have discussions, whether it's before we start reading the course in that half an hour between 12 and 12:30, or even in between each reading, some of our discussions that come up and the questions that we ask, right, that seem curious and, well, we just don't understand why, right? And then all of a sudden we'll read the next section and boom, there it is. And I think, again, it's part of the real teachings of A Course in Miracles is to have the experience. And I think in asking the question, it creates the experience for our mind to follow and to go through. And then to read it, we're like, okay, so I was in the experience of wondering why this is, or having an opinion about why this is. And now I understand more fully.
Yeah, and I also want to follow on that and add that it's congratulations, because it's the willingness to be open to find the teachings in everything.
Sure.
And that's what happens, to find the wisdom and what's relevant to you to then optimize, as you were saying before, be more efficient in your purpose of being a human being and a spirit having human experiences. So thank you for being so open.
Okay, any other questions or comments about what we just read?
I mean, that line stands out as well. The body's vulnerability is its own best argument that you cannot be of God. We've often thought that like illness is like, it really does feel like it can be an ego device for proving to us that all this stuff is a load of rubbish, you know. And look, here, we're going to show you, we're going to give you pain, we're going to give you problems, we're going to give you all of this, and this will prove to you that this is all untrue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, are we ready to keep going? All right. On to the next section. Rewards of God. And just to let everybody know, I know it says down here, listen to David read this. This is actually written by David Hoffmeister, who, if you play this, will read this entire thing to you. And I get it on acourseinmiraclesnow.com. So if anybody's interested, that's where I am reading this from. All right.
Can I just add, in response to Kusame, when we are asking for these things to come to us as different experiences that sometimes seem tough, it's just sort of acknowledging that we don't completely know what we think we know. So it gives us opportunities to keep experiencing and doing course corrections. Like when you drive, you don't just drive in a straight line. You're constantly kind of adjusting in your present moment what needs to be adjusted. So when you're experiencing these things, it's kind of going along with that purpose. And until you get to a point where it's like, aha, I knew that, but now I really know it beyond just thinking I understand it. And then it virtually doesn't happen anymore unless you've slipped out of that state of knowing and started getting into forgetting again.
Great share. Thank you, Mary. Call that the dunking pool. When you slip back into the dunking pool. Okay, the rewards of God. The ego does not recognize the real source of threat. And if you associate yourself with the ego, you do not understand the situation as it is. Only your allegiance to it gives the ego any power over you. I have spoken of the ego as if it were a separate thing, acting on its own. This was necessary to persuade you that you cannot dismiss it lightly and must realize how much of your thinking is ego-directed. We cannot safely let it go at that, however, or you will regard yourself as necessarily conflicted as long as you are here, or as long as you believe that you are here. The ego is nothing more than a part of your belief about yourself. Your other life has continued without interruption and has been and always will be totally unaffected by your attempts to dissociate it. And learning to escape from illusions, your debt to your brother is something you must never forget. It is the same debt that you owe to me. Whenever you act egotistically towards another, you're throwing away the graciousness of your indebtedness and the holy perception it would produce. The term holy can be used here because as you learn how much you are indebted to the whole sonship, which includes me, you come as close to knowledge as perception can. The gap is then so small that knowledge can easily flow across it and obliterate it forever. You have very little trust in me as yet, but it will increase as you turn more and more often to me instead of your ego for guidance. The results will convince you increasingly that this choice is the only sane one you can make. No one who learns from experience that one choice brings peace and joy, while another brings chaos and disaster, needs additional convincing. Learning through rewards is more effective than learning through pain, because pain is an ego illusion and can never induce more than a temporary effect. The rewards of God, however, are immediately recognized as eternal. Since this recognition is made by you and not the ego, the recognition itself establishes that you and your ego cannot be identical. You may believe that you have already accepted this difference, but you are by no means convinced as yet. The fact that you believe you must escape from the ego shows this, but you cannot escape from the ego by humbling it, or controlling it, or punishing it. The ego and the spirit do not know each other. The separated mind cannot maintain the separation except by dissociating. Having done this, it denies all truly natural impulses, not because the ego is a separate thing, but because you want to believe that you are. The ego is a device for maintaining this belief, but it is still only your decision to use the device that enables it to endure. How can you teach someone the value of something he has deliberately thrown away? He must have thrown it away because he did not value it. You can only show him how miserable he is without it and slowly bring it nearer so he can learn how his misery lessens as he approaches it. This teaches him to associate his misery with its absence, and the opposite of misery with its presence. It gradually becomes desirable as he changes his mind about its worth. I am teaching you to associate misery with the ego and joy with the spirit. You have taught yourself the opposite. You are still free to choose, but can you really want the rewards of the ego in the presence of the rewards of God? My trust in you is greater than yours in me at the moment, but it will not always be that way. Your mission is very simple. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego, and I do not choose God's channels wrongly. The Holy One shares my trust and accepts my at-one-ment decisions, because my will is never out of accord with his. I have said before that I am in charge of the at-one-ment. This is only because I completed my part in it as a man and can now complete it through others. My chosen channels cannot fail because I will lend them my strength as long as theirs is wanting. I will go with you to the Holy One. And through my perception, he can bridge the little gap. Your gratitude to your brother is the only gift I want. I will bring it to God for you, knowing that to know your brother is to know God. If you are grateful to your brother, you are grateful to God for what he created. Through your gratitude, you come to know your brother. And one moment of real recognition makes everyone your brother, because each of them is of your Father. Love does not conquer all things, but it does set all things right. Because you are the kingdom of God, I can lead you back to your own creations. You do not recognize them now, but what has been dissociated is still there. As you come closer to a brother, you approach me. And as you withdraw from him, I become distant to you. Salvation is a collaborative venture. It cannot be undertaken successfully by those who disengage themselves from the sonship, because they are disengaging themselves from me. God will come to you only as you will give him to your brothers. Learn first of them, and you will be ready to hear God. That is because the function of love is one. I really enjoyed that, that indebtedness to a brother. You know, it's so funny. I've been reading this for over 30 years, and it's the first time I remember hearing that so clearly and so poignantly, that you need to be indebted to feel the indebtedness to your brother. In other words, it's important to know that you see your brother as God, as your savior, as your path to at-one-ment. And it's such an important tool. We disregard that so many times. We think, oh, I can find God, I can connect with the Holy Spirit if I just close my eyes and I just tune in to God and I tune into the Holy Spirit within me. And Course in Miracles says again and again and again, no, it's through your brothers. You can't come alone. You can only come through your God, your brothers, and seeing that God, that Christ in your brother. And that's part of the at-one-ment, right? Or the atonement, however you choose to pronounce it. I do realize it's pronounced atonement, but for me, at-one-ment makes more sense.
Yeah. I was going to extend what I had said before, and then it was in this reading, if you will. And part of it is just to, when we think and know that we are also, or we are, before I was making the point of being present, but now I'm talking about knowing that we are whole, and as a whole, things have many aspects. They're diverse, they're multifaceted. And so even when we look at one thing happening, if we are only looking at it from one narrow perspective as a separated self and saying, yeah, I understand that, then we're shown many other aspects of it, so that when we understand the whole, we're not threatened by or don't take exception to any of its parts, because it needs them all to be whole. And so that's the shift in our perception and our thinking that allows us to be spirit. Is there's only a few concepts, and that wholeness is very important to our peace, because once you understand that, you're not threatened by anything else. Everything is important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mary.
The first.
Oh, you froze on my screen. Anybody else? Or am I the one that's freezing?
No, they froze.
Okay.
It happened one. They're there. You were frozen
Okay.
personally. You're back now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not. Oh. No, oh, good. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what you heard. Yeah. When I first read this, it was, I'm not sure, 23, 22 years ago. I was horrified by the extent to which it tells you can't do it on your own, because at that point in my life, I'd only ever done anything on my own. You know, I was a survivor. I was, whatever, so many reasons that I never relied on anybody else. And it felt really mean. It's like, it's not fair. I can't. Yeah. I want to go and sit in a cave and just meditate and I don't know, today what that means for us very much is that it's not so much that we have to like employ the services of others or actually spend time with others or anything, but much more that we can't push anybody away. We can't exclude anybody from us. We can't say, you know, you're different from us. We can't say, oh, you know, you're less than or more than or any of those things. That, yeah, we see everything as part of us and us as part of everyone. In that sense, and these days we're a different person in many ways, and so we can very much enjoy what comes from interacting with other people. Like, we've seen your message, Sunny. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, it says that bit again, doesn't it? The ego and spirit do not know each other. We understand that bit now. And also there was a bit where it was talking to what we were saying the other week, where like last week, your other life has continued without interruption and has been and always will be totally unaffected by your attempts to dissociate it. That whole concept is we find very beautiful, because it helps us to know that we're not messing up. Like when we're just like whatever, we can't mess up. Like the ego cannot mess up. It can't do anything. It can't affect reality at all. It can't affect what our true existence at all. And even if we feel like we're doing really badly, the other life is continuing without any interruption and is totally unaffected. Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Or
We're not sure like is the right word, but we're going to add something anyway, we think. So section 3 right there, particularly when it turns the page onto 3.3. We were doing the lessons. We took a break. We took a break because we took a break really so we could heal. Because we suppose this is experience, right? But this is not bringing peace and joy. This is chaos and disaster. This is, you know, we were a child the last time. We spent 2 days trying to think of a reason not to step out into traffic. And so, you know, when it tells us how, you know, when we come to this willingly and such like this, you know, just the peace and joy we're going to feel, and it just feels like a new way to lie to us. You know, we just feel kind of gaslit by this on a regular basis, and this is just a new way. But as we said, we're taking a break because we can't continue with this if we come up with a good reason to step out in traffic. So, you know, just and we're not going to. That's not the point. But the point is, you know, just that is not peace and joy that we're talking about there. That learning through rewards is more effective than learning through pain. Well, Good, good, good that we're taking us this path then, because, you know, this is as painful as anything we've experienced right now. So anyway, that's it. It's just, yeah, we're taking a break from the lessons. We thought about, okay, we'll keep coming with the text, but yeah, we're putting that aside. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Sonny. And it's funny. Similarly, I did the same thing. When I started reading A Course in Miracles, I was reading the lessons and I thought, all right, this is going so much against everything that I've worked so hard to create, everything that I've busted my behind to make a life for myself, which was hard, you know, because I had gone through a lot of being in that place of being a victim and being in that place of being a survivor. And that was hard to get from victim to survivor. And then, you know, I was in that warrior stance for such a long time, you know, just fighting tooth and nail to get through life. And I remember thinking, if I continue with these lessons, everything that I've worked so hard to create is going to vanish. It's going to disappear. And I can't do that. I can't do it. So I did the same thing. I took a break. I put the book down, walked away, and I was like, nope, not doing it. And I think it was necessary for me. I just couldn't handle any more of it at the time. But then life showed up and showed me that once again, the life I was living was not bringing me any type of peace or joy. And this was months later. I took I think 6 months break of doing the lessons. And then slowly, very slowly, when I was ready to continue for my place of safety, because my early story was I'm afraid and I'm not safe. And I created all kinds of structures to protect myself because my early trauma was not a safe place. My early childhood was not a safe place to be. And, you know, part of that wall of, you know, I'm afraid and I'm not safe, part of those things that I created were to keep things like this away so that I wouldn't have to break down my wall before I was ready, and I wasn't ready. So I appreciate you sharing that, Sonny. And I don't know if this is helping you, but I just wanted to let you know I've not been where you are. I don't know your path, but on my path, I had to take a break. And I just wanted to share that with you. So that is that. But you know, it's just interesting that we get to these places of what we'll accept in and what is just not, we're just not ready to. And it's, you know, sometimes the timing is just not right for that. And we're always exactly where we're supposed to be at every moment. I do believe that is true. I know that's not Course in Miracles based. It's something else, but that's definitely spoke volumes in my life. And it's given me the peace to know that, you know, my path isn't wrong. It's not right. It's my path. And, you know, sometimes it's just the way that it is, and you have to honor that for yourself and do what's right for you.
And
okay.
Could that space that you took, Terry, be looked at as kind of digesting, if you will, that sometimes if we continue to eat, we just get so overfull that it's miserable. And so you took the time to digest, and then you could eat more, or to be in a cocoon. Because sometimes we think of taking a break as being like really negative. Oh, I was supposed to study this lesson every day. I was supposed to move to another lesson. If you're really trying to assimilate it and not just, you know, do it to conquer it, to accomplish it, then sometimes we need to step back and let it digest so we don't overeat.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I can say, probably looking back, that probably is what I was doing. but I know in the moment of taking that break, it was not in the awareness of digesting. It was in the awareness of, I didn't want to be brainwashed into thinking something else, because I wasn't really sure what I was learning. And it was scary for me, because my world had been terrifying. And I had set up all of these mechanisms to protect myself. And one of those mechanisms was saying, stop, do not enter, do not pass go. There's no more getting in right now. And yeah, I think you're right, Mary. In some way, I was probably slowly digesting it, but outwardly, it wasn't an intentional process. It was, I think, more of an internal process that was happening. But yes, I think you're right. That's definitely what was going on, unbeknownst to my, maybe that was the way the Holy Spirit was getting behind the wall without my ego knowing. Digesting it for me.
Hey,
We do have something else.
that's why it's good.
But Julie's hand was up, so we're gonna wait.
Okay. All right, Julie, I'm sorry, I didn't even
That's
see your
why it's
hand
good
up.
to read. That's why it's good to read other stuff, and also always question. For me, question is good to be, and it's good to say I don't know.
Yeah, perfect. Well said. Go ahead, Julia. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore the hand.
No worries. I definitely have had to take breaks. And one of the things that in this last time of taking quite a significant break, I felt very led to put this on my phone. And this is from the introduction to the workbook, paragraph 8. So remember only this: you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, and you need not welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy, but allow yourself to make no exceptions in applying the ideas that the exercises contain. Whatever your reaction to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more is required. And sometimes my willingness is, supersonic, and other times it's less than the size of a mustard seed. But just being willing to consider that when I make my egoic thoughts louder than Holy Spirit's nudges for me, that's a slippery slope. And I do also recognize that as a trauma survivor and someone that follows 12-step recovery, sometimes it's a little more of a complicated road. And I just wanted to share that. I'm complete. Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. And I think you were waiting too, Sunny, right? Did you have something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, but we think both Carl and Ernesto both spoke up too, so.
Nope, I did not.
Okay. Ernesto, did you? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah, just to give an example, because so we hurt ourselves moving. Our legs, we injured them. There's some that'll heal, but nevertheless, it felt better, and we were having crisis after crisis here, and one after another, nothing works. And we decided we've been meaning to go thrift store shopping to see if they had furniture that we need for here, and we decided to take our bike. And we cannot use GPS on our phone when we're not driving. When we're driving, we've never taken a wrong turn. But the bus, when it says go to the bus stop at 15th and Grand, and there are 4 corners and 4 bus stops, right? It doesn't help, right? We don't know the area. It just doesn't help us. So we ended up taking the bike. And when we got there a couple of miles away, we had only gotten lost once, because again, we can't go with the GPS with the bike so well. But we got there, and we got some stuff. We couldn't get it delivered, which is what we were hoping to do, and a little disappointed about that. But whatever, must be a reason. Stepping out and decide, we're at that half an hour mark where we repeat the lesson for today. There is no will but God's. And that flat proof bicycle tire we had was flat. And our legs were already hurting, and now we had our bag as well as the bags of stuff that we had purchased and our bike, and we have to push it home, and we hope we're going in the right direction. And we walked about 100 yards, and we were like, and we were angry. We had done this basically because we couldn't take any more, that we stepped away from, because everything. And so we said, there's no wills but God. And then we saw that and we started pushing, and we, like we said, 100 yards later, we got back. Okay, we're angry about this. We need to go ahead and do this. So again, there is no will but, and we couldn't finish. The bike stopped short, upended, and the back came over the top. Somehow the tube had come out of the tire and wrapped around in such a way that it could not be released. It had to be cut. So we had to carry the bike home. Our legs, every step hurt, right? But as we're about to say, there's no will but God's again, and then more. And we were at a point where we couldn't take anymore, and it just kept coming. Yeah, we've lost the internet a number of times. Our pharmacy has canceled all of our medications, seriously, 4 times this week, 4 times. And we were supposed to have one of them that we're really suffering without on the 26th of last month, and we still don't have it. It's a 28-day supply, and we're begging them on the phone. We can't get it done, and the internet goes out, and then, everything. Our phone stopped working. We couldn't send texts when we were reaching out to ask for help, and suddenly we can't do that. And, it just, and that was all just, and then we sat down at the desk because we were like, we can't do anything. The TV won't stream Netflix anymore. It won't stream anything. We can't get on the computer. That's not working. We sit down at the desk because we have nowhere else to do. And the huge and very pretty and largest rock we have that we set as a decoration on the top of the hutch, as soon as we sat down, it had been up there good for 2 or 3 days. As soon as we sat down, it tumbled off, hit us on the back of the head, ripped our head open, 2 big goose eggs, and we've got blood running down our back, and our heads hits, and our neck is hurting now. And it was like we had begged pretty much, no more. We can't take it anymore, please. And it just kept coming. And it's like, yeah. So when we got to the rewards, we learned better from, chaos and disaster. And that's basically what we're thinking is we cannot screw up this bad. There is no way that this many things can happen wrong in a row, every single thing, without some finger on the scale, which a thumb on the scale kind of thing. And so, we, maybe it is all about us going, oh, we just don't want what we built to be torn down. But there comes a time when you just can't take any more pain at that point, and that's kind of, yeah. Anyway, we finally decided we're going to take our bike tire to instead of trying to fix it again. So we looked up a place, and again, we were talking to Kusama, and we were like, yeah, after this call, we're leaving because if everything goes wrong here. So we called the bike place and we said, hey, if we bring down our bike, it's a 26-inch Schwinn and it's got this much. Can you change the tube on it? Sure. How long? 15 minutes. If we're busy, 15 minutes. How much? $22. Okay. Is there anything else I need to know? No. Got down there. Oh, you need a tire too. We don't have that in stock. We'll have to order that. Come back in a week and a half or 2 weeks. We'll give you a call. We got home. The call came. You're not going to believe this. We found a tire here. Come get it. It's ready. It only took us 2 hours round trip on the bus, and we got lost, and a bunch of, and it's just like, really, would nothing happen? Okay, anyway, that's sorry. We definitely went off, but it's like, yeah, not sure what it is that we built that we're feeling is being torn down, but it's just like, it's hard to feel loved when you're begging, please, I can't take any more, and it keeps coming. It's like, what do you want me to do? Anyway, And we are talked out probably for the rest of the session. So there. You're muted, Terry.
Good. I was just saying, I don't think I really need to speak to that. So I said, that's probably good that I'm muted. But I appreciate you sharing that because, yeah, I feel for you and my heart goes to you. And I wish I lived closer because I'd come over and have some tea with you and be like, okay, Sonny, I'm here. What can I do to help you? And it is one of those times where distance sadly is a hindrance here, but just know that my thoughts are with you. I don't know if that helps, and I feel for you, and I'm here if you ever want to reach out, if you want to call me or text me or email me, know that I am here for you. I think we all need that when we're going. Okay, I'm not sure where that noise came from, but all right, let's go ahead and continue. If anybody has something else to share. Are we ready to go? Okay, 116. Creation and communication. It is clear that while the content of any particular ego illusion does not matter, its correction is more helpful in a specific context. Ego illusions are quite specific, although the mind is naturally abstract. Part of the mind becomes concrete, however, when it splits. The concrete parts believe in the ego because the ego depends on the concrete. The ego is the part of the mind that believes your existence is defined by separation. Everything the ego perceives is a separate whole, without the relationships that imply being. The ego is thus against communication, except insofar as it is utilized to establish separateness rather than to abolish it. The communication system of the ego is based on its own thought system, as is everything else it dictates. Its communication is controlled by its need to protect itself, and it will disrupt communication when it experiences threat. This disruption is a reaction to a specific person or persons. The specificity of the ego's thinking, then, results in spurious generalization, which is really not abstract at all. It merely responds in certain specific ways to everything it perceives as related. In contrast, spirit reacts in the same way to everything it knows is true, and does not respond at all to anything else. Nor does it make any attempt to establish what is true. It knows that what is true is everything that God created. It is in complete and direct communication with every aspect of creation, because it is in complete and direct communication with its creator. This communication is the will of God. Creation and communication are synonymous. God created every mind by communicating his mind to it, thus establishing it forever as a channel for the reception of his mind and will. Since only beings of a like order can truly communicate, his creations naturally communicate with him and like him. This communication is perfectly abstract, since its quality is universal in application and not subject to any judgment, any exception, or any alteration. God created you by this and for this. The mind can distort its function, but it cannot endow itself with functions it was not given. That is why the mind cannot totally lose the ability to communicate, even though it may refuse to utilize it on behalf of being. Existence as well as being rest on communication. Existence, however, is specific in how, what, and with whom communication is judged to be worth undertaking. Being is completely without these distinctions. It is a state in which the mind is in communication with everything that is real. To whatever extent you permit this state to be curtailed, you are limiting your senses of your own reality, which becomes total only by recognizing all reality in the glorious context of its real relationship to you. This is your reality. Do not desecrate it or recoil from it. It is your real home, your real temple, and your real self. God, who encompasses all being, created beings who have everything individually, but who want to share it to increase their joy. Nothing real can be increased except by sharing. That is why God created you. Divine abstraction takes joy in sharing. That is what creation means. How, what, and to whom are irrelevant, because real creation gives everything, since it can create only like itself. Remember that in the kingdom, there is no difference between having and being, as there is in existence. In the state of being, the mind gives everything always. The Bible repeatedly states that you should praise God. This hardly means that you should tell him how wonderful he is. He has no ego with which to accept such praise, and no perception with which to judge it. But unless you take your part in creation, his joy is not complete, because yours is incomplete. And this he does know. He knows it in his own being and its experience of his son's experience. The constant going out of his love is blocked when his channels are closed. And he is lonely when the minds he created do not communicate fully with him. God has kept your kingdom for you, but he cannot share his joy with you until you know it with your whole mind. Revelation is not enough, because it is only communication from God. God does not need revelation returned to him, which would clearly be impossible, but he does want it brought to others. This cannot be done with the actual revelation. Its content cannot be expressed because it is intensely personal to the mind that receives it. It can, however, be returned by that mind to other minds through the attitudes the knowledge from the revelation brings. God is praised whenever any mind learns to be wholly helpful. This is impossible without being wholly harmless, because the two beliefs must coexist. The truly helpful are invulnerable, because they are not protecting their egos, and so nothing can hurt them. Their helpfulness is their praise of God, and he will return their praise of him, because they are like him, and they can rejoice together. God goes out to them and through them, and there is great joy throughout the kingdom. Every mind that is changed adds to this joy with its individual willingness to share in it. The truly helpful are God's miracle workers, whom I direct until we are all united in the joy of the kingdom. I will direct you to wherever you can be truly helpful, and to whoever can follow my guidance through you. That's beautiful. Boy, isn't that interesting how that just spoke exactly to what we were just talking about.
Hmm.
Oh, you are muted, Kuzume. You did the same thing.
We were talking. Oh well. We were just saying that we really like the last two paragraphs. We lost focus a little bit earlier because we're tired, but yeah, when we had our first revelation, we very much wanted to communicate what we had learned to everybody, particularly in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, which we were then. And we tried so hard to tell people what we then knew to be the truth. It was just words to them, and over and over. And we gradually realized that it was just words and it didn't mean anything. Even when people would say, oh, yeah, I understand. And then they'd say something that showed that they didn't understand anything at all in the same way that we did. But yeah, then what it says in paragraph 8, well, what it spoke to us right now in paragraph 8, is that all we can do is be who we are, knowing what we know, and that seems to us to be a kind of a lifetime's journey, really. Yeah, and yeah, learning to being wholly helpful, just wanting to help others. That sounds really kind of saintly, which is certainly very far from who we are. But we do know for sure that when one of the things we were taught that has proved to be true is that when we're lost in self-pity and resentment, the only thing that will help us is to ask to be shown somebody else we can help. That is the thing that brings us out of that. And being given the opportunity to help somebody else, that's when we realize what we have. That's when we realize that we temporarily have more than them, and we're able to do something from them, and that we haven't, we don't feel lost anymore. And yeah, I will direct you to whoever you can be truly, to wherever you can be truly helpful, and to whoever can follow my guidance through you. We had somebody message us yesterday and they said, really enjoyed your share. This was from like a fellowship meeting. And we're like, okay, well, yeah, what do you enjoy about it? And they're like, we just like you being authentically you know, and that's just what they like. And that's it, isn't it? That's why we love fellowship so much, because like nobody's trying to tell you how, nobody's trying to teach you, nobody's trying to tell you how to be. People are just being themselves. And that's how we learn. By being ourselves to the best extent that we possibly can, we show others who they are, because we're all basically the same, or something like that. Anyway, we'll stop talking.
Yeah, no, that was wonderful. And yeah, and sometimes the ways that we can be truly helpful are just, you know, doing our best to and ask the Holy Spirit for guidance, right? And listen to the messages as they come in, right? Because I think sometimes as we get messages, it's like, boom, oh, you know, I need to reach out to this person and share this with this person, or boom, I need to share this other thing with this in this situation that's happening, you know, and sometimes that's the best way for us to be truly helpful, is to really just be open to hearing those messages and sharing those messages as they come through us. But that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have anything they want to share before we close? I guess that's it.
Thank you.
All right,
Have a good week,
everyone.
everyone. And Mary, have a good trip.
Oh, Mary, where are you going?
Oh, nowhere special, just to spend time with friends back down in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, fun. Fun.
A bunch of old midwives getting together. We've been friends for like 45 years, and people are coming into town to see me, and we'll have a big pajama party for a couple of nights.
Oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. Well, have fun with your midwife pajama party. We're actually having a pajama party this Saturday night too. My son Bo is having a birthday party, so he wanted breakfast for dinner and everybody to dress up in their pajamas. So that's our pajama party happening this weekend. All right, everyone. I think we had some very powerful conversations. Thank you everyone for sharing and being vulnerable. I know sometimes that's hard to do, but I think it really helps all of us. So I really appreciate it. And I'm very thankful and grateful for all of you. All right. I will see you all next week. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Bye, everyone. Have a beautiful week.
Bye. Thank you.